Goodbye endless trips to the pharmacy, and hello MedSync. All your meds ready for one monthly pickup with no hassle. Give James Drugstore a call to get started.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there joining us today. We are here in the booth with a special guest. We haven't had him in a while. It's been about 8 months. But of course, as per usual, there's a circumstance that occurred at the Parish Council, which usually brings him right back in here. So I'm going to let him introduce himself this morning before we get started. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Tracy Girlinghouse, Parish Councilman for District 7, which is the Walker area and the area surrounding outside the Walker city limits.
All right. And today we are talking about, I guess, well, we're just going to say it. There's a subdivision south of Denham Springs. It's a big one. I believe it's 3rd-acre lots. A lot of homes going into this development called Stillwater. There was, Sweetwater. And by the way, David Gray is in the corner. Thank you for the correction.
Isn't that a song?
Yes. So the whole deal here is, you guys were, you're not really for it. You eventually deferred it. But at the same time, as we've discussed in the past, if they pass all their, the impact studies and that kind of thing, there's really not a whole lot y'all can do. Your hands are tied. And so here you are presented with that same situation again. So first and foremost, y'all deferred it. Tell me a little bit, or tell us, me and listeners, audience, David was there when y'all did it, why y'all decided to try to at least defer it. What was the hope?
Well, like we've said in the past, we are locked down by ordinances because we aren't zoned as a parish. And I hate to keep going back to that, but that's what it is. We all know if it meets the ordinances, then you have to pass it. I think Mr. Delat had brought up a piece of legislation as it deems to health and welfare of the area. If a development affects that, I certainly think it does. I mean, the development would, but there was a little, in my opinion, measure where that could apply. So I opted to defer in order to get the Attorney General's opinion on this, and I think that's what the majority of us did. But so I had reached out to the Attorney General to get their opinion. It's hard to get a written opinion, but I managed to get them on the phone to give me their thoughts on the matter, and so. I'm going to move forward with my votes. Whether we get the written opinion back or not, I don't know. But I've spoken directly with the Attorney General's office. They called me on the phone and told me that law and how they view that as applies to development.
Sure. And in all this, there was a consideration of, as you and I were talking before, the dreaded M word. We're not going to get too much into it because it never came to pass anyway. I don't even think y'all actually even talked about it. But for those out there who are listening, the dreaded M word is moratorium, and there's a lot of economic effects from that, a lot of development effects. I know that y'all, as a council, eventually decided you weren't going to do that. But I do want to bring up something recently with regard to future development, at least in terms of infrastructure. Parish President Leighton Ricks vetoed an ordinance that y'all passed, 8-1 vote, Gary Frog Talbert, only dissenting vote. Basically, this was going to widen what the state/parish owned in terms of major thoroughfares, correct?
Correct. State highways, yes.
State highways. So it was supposed to make widening the state highways and moving, when you always hear about a development project for widening or changing some infrastructure, the first thing you always hear is moving utilities. And
yes.
It's always a problem. And it always takes forever. So it sounded like y'all were trying to head that off at the pass.
Well, we were. And just if someone builds in what you would need to widen that road, if you build a structure in that road, then it becomes more costly. Look, if they decide they're going to 4-lane a highway that's a 2-lane, you're going to have paying for it is going to be the issue, because you can pay for land. You purchase the land from the people or the residents or the business owners to widen it. But if there's a structure there, I mean, you got to widen it, so you had to pay for the structure. We were just trying to head that off. I don't think that it was one of those things that where we're just going to go in there and go to land grab and do all this construction. I mean, we can't. So the parish president felt like it was a bit of a bite, and in retrospect, I look at the parish as a whole, every state highway, there's probably some truth in that. I'll just go ahead and admit it. My concern was mainly for, I'll be honest, Florida Boulevard. At some point, we have to widen that road. During the meeting, Mr. Talbert said, we feel like we're taking this, and I said, well, we only have basically 3 options. One, which isn't even an option, do nothing. That's not an option. That's what we've been doing, nothing. 2 is widen the roads that exist. 3 is to build new roads. If you don't widen the roads that you have, then you have to build new roads. Then, my question to them and to you and to the council when I brought it up was, which is more intrusive? Building a new road? I guarantee you have to affect people that way. You have to put that road somewhere, and it's going to cut through private property. It's going to cut through, certain areas, and it becomes internally kind of a nightmare. Where do you put these roads? Where do they go? How does it help? Ultimately, I think we need to widen some of these roads, and in my mind, it was Florida Boulevard at some point in the future needs to be widened. I don't feel like I'm alone on this. If you widen that, the traffic going through there would be greatly affected in a positive manner. And does it affect the people who live directly off, or the business directly off Florida Boulevard? I mean, certainly it does, but we have to make hard decisions.
Sure.
And
it's interesting, one of the things, you and I were both at the meeting, it was back when I was covering you guys, and Chad Bacchus of Fort and Deblata, and I want to preface this with, this is not Chad like making this law or this rule or anything. He was just informing the council. So please, everybody, don't go run off and email Chad at Fort and Deblata and say, how dare you? But he did inform you guys that 15-foot servitude with an 11-foot wide road was not substandard.
yes,
And, when you go back and look at that, it starts to make dealing with these new subdivisions very difficult, because those traffic impact studies are taking that into account. So when you're talking about widening servitude, one of the things I looked at in comparison when he said that, in Texas, it's 30 feet. They have 30 feet.
Yeah.
That's double what we have here, because it's 11-foot wide road and 2 feet on each side for most of these parish roads. Now, some of the state roads, they've widened it a little bit. But it's very interesting to see how that affects, because it increases the cost. Because the first thing you got to do is go get those utilities to relocate.
Yep.
And that's expensive. And then you got to buy land, like you said. So all that being said, one of the things that this is brought up, and as I mentioned at the forefront, this is why you came, is zoning. You've been a champion of it for 4 years now. I think this will be the 5th year. We've tried to do our best to cover you as you've been going along with it. But today, I guess you're here to talk about the fact that it's actually moving in a direction.
Yeah.
And y'all have received preliminary maps of your parish council districts and what the proposed zoning would be. I believe is through Alvin Fairburn, correct?
Yes, AFA.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that process. I mean, what was it like for someone to come and hand you a map of your district and say, this is how I think it should be zoned?
Well, it was very rough, and because. Well, let me go back a little bit. So there was, when we first brought this through, when we got it, we acquired the funds from the budget. It was budgeted to do it. They brought it to us. There was a phase 1, which was the definitions, and we went over this before. I just a quick brush up. So they did phase 1, the definitions, how you define what is what. R1, R2, commercial, residential, industrial, etc. We got those. We voted on that. It went, and that part passed. Then the second phase was the maps. We got our first rough draft of the maps, and there will probably be 2 or 3, I'd say 3, before we get it right, and then we can do some adjustments, on particular pieces as we see fit. we all got our first draft. I went in, I think probably 3 days later, sat down. I looked at the rough draft, and it was pretty rough. Just I kind of have the areas, the city. We don't affect the city limits of Walker, and the city falls smack in the middle of my district. So, I can just kind of black out that whole area because it's not applicable to my job or what I'm doing. And I went through in certain sections. I said, I don't want this to be like this. I want this to be this. And, this area here, I would like, set aside, like, for instance, on the other side of 449, where 449 hits Florida Boulevard, the stretch that goes to the interstate, I want that to be in a situation where we could develop that into another road in the future, where we can develop that to where the 449 goes at least to the interstate, maybe giving us another corridor. It's future planning. Might happen in my lifetime, might not. But I want to lay it that way. And if they want to change it later, if somewhere in the future someone says this is not needed, we could put this there. That's fine. But I wanted to lay that out preliminary like that. So, and then I handed it back to them, and I said, this is what I want. Put this together, get it back to me. I foresee I'll probably do that at least one more time, and then I will take that as the finished product, but finished for as far as I see. And then I will have public meetings. I'll input. People can come. Private property owners, business owners, anything, and they say, what about this? Where am I? I'm probably good. If you own a house, you're probably going to be residential. If you have a house now, you're going to be residential. Unless you're on a corridor, then I can call you commercial. Either way it goes, or you won't ever have a problem going from residential to commercial if you're on, let's say, Florida Boulevard. I don't think anybody's going to fight you on that, know. So, but just allow people to have input. And and probably 95% of the case, you'll be fine exactly like it is. And if you're not, there's 95% of the case, I won't have a problem changing it.
Sure.
What I'm trying to do in this is to stop the massive development of these huge neighborhoods. There, those 400, 200 even in my district. Those, as soon as I get this through, those are coming to an end in District 7.
Right, and. Part of the reason we've had these conversations in the past, and the reason I wanted to bring up the road servitude and things like that, is that's one of the main reasons why you're trying to get rid of them. Because
absolutely,
if for those of you who don't know, District 7 encompasses a major part of the city of Walker, but several areas north, and you're looking at Duff Road, places like that, where it's 11 feet wide, but you've got these huge neighborhoods coming in constantly. So and it is. One question I'd like to ask, this is a concern of people who currently live on places like Duff Road and that kind of thing. So they've expressed this concern to you, like traffic sucks. Traffic is a problem on our road.
And they don't have to express it. I mean, I live there. I don't live on Duff, but my girlfriend's parents live on Duff, like 30 feet from the entrance across on the other side of Duff. It's a problem. It's a huge problem, and it doesn't take I don't know, people understand whenever that people bring in a preliminary plat and they put it in front of us. And if they meet the ordinances, it passes. We don't see it again unless there's an issue. Unless, can we get a waiver on this, or we have to change our preliminary plat, then it comes back to us. But I mean, I would have never let that development happen on that road from the get-go with the width and it's just a dangerous situation. We fought to get that back exit going out through Isabella. Mm-hmm. We changed the ordinances just to pull some traffic off of Duff and give someone another inlet and outlet, because that helped. But it did put traffic on, Walker North, which is not exactly,
that doesn't make it a whole
it's
lot
not
better.
exactly, an empty lot either. I mean, it doesn't. So, we have a critical infrastructure problem, and so that's what we're trying to address. We're not trying to kill development altogether, but I think District 7 and a few other, but I could speak directly for District 7. It's kind of we're tapping out,
right? That's what I was going to say. Is that you're not looking to you're looking for more responsible growth. You're not looking to kill it.
Yes,
and because I wanted to make sure that point was clarified, because at first you're like, I'm here to kill this, and this, and it's like, well, we're here for responsible.
But I just don't see a situation where you have a 400 or 500 house development, I don't know where that would be good anywhere in my district.
Sure.
Now, somebody might bring me something and prove me wrong, but I can't imagine that in my head right now.
Sure.
Just to be honest, but as soon as you say that, somebody goes, well, there's, this, but I don't see that. My zoning map will be indicative of that statement.
Sure.
You'll look at that. That won't happen. Now, in the future, you can always rezone something, but my map's not going to allow that to happen. And that's what I'm trying to get to. That's what this council's trying to get to. And it's just hard to govern by ordinance when it comes to development.
Sure. Which is why you need zoning.
Yes.
Because, with zoning, it kind of comes all in one package, whereas ordinances, you're trying to address singular issues, especially so you don't have an overreach.
And usually, but when the issue comes up, you can't affect that development because they're already in play.
Yeah.
You can't go by. They've already went through. They've already gotten their preliminary approved.
Right.
Or you can't say, let's hold up on you, even though you meet every ordinance, so we can get this in place so you won't meet it.
Right.
And sometimes I wish that were true. I wish we could, but we can't.
Right. And with zoning, it's everybody's going to get their say, and we're going to talk about the process going forward in just a second. But everybody's going to get their say, and it's pervasive. It affects everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're dealing with individual subdivisions, there's a constant concern of what sort of precedent are we setting.
Yes.
So let's talk about going forward. You have maps. Y'all are rough maps, but you have maps. You're going back and forth with AFA. Let's say that you get to a point where you say, okay, I'm comfortable with the way this looks. What comes next?
What comes next is that we're going to do some public meetings, and AFA will be present because they're going to bring their maps and their knowledge to the table. There will be representatives, and we'll probably have it. We'll advertise it. We'll either have it at the parish council chambers. If the mayor's nice enough, we might have it in this, make it a little more central for our area, for the Walker area.
Sure.
At their building, if he allows us to. And I'm sure he will, but we'll put it somewhere and invite the public in to come look. And if a citizen comes and says, "Look, I have a question about this," we'll go, "Where's your property at?" We'll look at it. We're going to zone you this, and it could be mostly just general information. I don't know what they're doing. Inform me. And we'll tell them how we have their property zoned, as of now, in theory, and explain to them why. And then they might say, well, what about this? I might want to do, like we had said earlier, I'm on Florida Boulevard here. We have you zoned commercial, but you could have your house there. Well, my house is there. Well, we'll make it residential for you. Look, if you decide you want to sell your house and it's residential, and I might just do those pieces of property residential, that already have houses on them, because you're going to have no problem switching that. If someone wants to move it, it won't be a problem as far as you want to sell it to make it commercial. Somebody comes in and wants to buy your property, tear down the house, pay you a huge amount of money because they want to put a business there, and you're inclined to do that. We can change that. But we're going to have those meetings. I'll have one just to gauge what the reaction is, but I'm at least going to have probably 3 just to be satisfied with with the end product, make my adjustments, hand it to them, and then be done with it. Now, after zoning is passed, we're going to have a grace period where people can come in and you just say, "Look, I want to change this," and we'll just change it on the fly. We'll just say, "Okay, we'll vote. We'll make the change in the at the meeting." Maybe a year. I don't know the time frame on that. What they would consider a good time frame? Maybe a year and a half, and then after that, we're just going to be turned over to planning and zoning. And then they will decide after that. But just because when it goes into law and it comes in, it's not the end of the road. There's going to be a time frame where you can say, "I would like to change mine. I don't like you." Using the Florida Boulevard situation, you might have a piece of property you wanted residential, and then you decide, "Hey, I'd like to make this commercial." You can do it without fanfare. We'll just do it, and there won't, in my mind, there won't be a fee. You just do it. Now, after that year and a half, or whatever they decide on that time, then there will be a fee. But even then, it'll be it'll be small.
Sure. Well, there has to be. I suppose not has to be, but in most instances, the responsible way to do it is to have a fee. Got to pay the
Yeah.
people who do the studies or who process the paperwork, etc. So, real quick question before we kind of get into the idea of a time frame here. The master plan committee.
Hmm.
Are you still working with them? They have begun meeting post-COVID, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you're still working with them.
I am.
Are they going to have input on the zoning?
I mean, I will certainly let my as a body, that Mr. Burns is the chairman. He's also my planning appointee. So I mean, I will take stuff from him all the time, but I certainly do not have a problem, and they can bring anything to us they want to. I mean, any information they give would be welcome. So yes, I guess the short answer is we haven't discussed it in the sense, but I think as far as the master plan goes, if you look at their charter, I guess per se, it's pretty specific, but I will take input from them in any way it goes, as long as they stay within the guidelines of their charter.
Sure. Sure. So, and they meet once a month, I
Mhm.
believe, in the parish council chambers. So, last but certainly not least, you had already kind of mentioned it, but I want to sort of solidify. You're hoping to put together some meetings for this summer, correct? For your community.
Yes.
Community-based meetings.
Yes.
With the idea that this might be on the fall ballot?
What ballot?
Well, wouldn't zoning... maybe that's a better question. How exactly would you say you have your community meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and you, like you said, you get to the end of that process, you're, 95 to 98% of people are happy. Some people are a little wonky, but for the most part, you got the map the way you want it. What comes next?
Once I get my map, once the councilmen get their maps the way they want them,
Yes.
and however process they do it. I mean, they might have 10 meetings, they might have one.
Sure.
I don't know. Outside of, I'm happy with my map. Let's bring the public in to look at the map and see how they feel about it. Once they do that, then it goes to the vote of the council.
Okay.
The council votes on it. And if it passes the council, it's law.
Okay. I didn't know if it was going to go to the ballot box or not. So, okay. So, really important if you're listening to this, when the public meetings come, you need to show up.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
And those will be coming probably over the summer. Try to give each council member time to really look at their
Certainly.
map.
I'm hoping first of the summer for me, but you're kind of at the mercy of the engineering firm putting it together for you, but they've
Sure.
been pretty responsive. So, they've been pretty responsive. So, but I mean, I'm not going to lollygag, I guess the word would be. I don't know. I'm not going to sit around and wait. That's why I turned mine back into them. I set apart some time, looked at it strong, because it's a lot. It's a lot to look at. And I knew that it's going to be a process, but I have a good feeling of, after turning it in, talking to them for probably 45 minutes to an hour, sitting talking to the engineers, saying, what do you think about this and this, and just have a few questions about how things are defined. What could go in this space if I define it this way? What couldn't?
Sure.
And what would happen if you didn't know, if you peg something agricultural, then you got to understand, if they want to have a pig farm there, they can.
Right.
But you're protected for a lot of other stuff. But so you have to you have to be
have a dynamite.
Yeah, exactly.
Factory
And yeah, exactly. And they can't build a huge neighborhood there, or a multiplex of apartments.
Right.
But they can't have a pig farm.
Right.
So
it's good to pay attention to the land that's around you.
Yes, and that's another thing you do too, is you look at where the neighborhoods are, because where the neighborhoods or the subdivisions are now, those are going to be residential. They're there, so you, for the most part, they're going to be residential. So, but it's not that cut and dry, because you have a whole bunch of things you could do it, and how you want to do it. Like residential itself could be R1, R2, R3. Or it could be residential commercial, or it could be, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of subsets.
Sure.
So yeah, but I'm pretty good by fall, or I would say I'm hoping by September I'll be done with mine. done, meetings done, everything done. And I want to be the first one out the gate. That way, this has been my push since the beginning, and I kind of want to I want to help set a standard, guys. Get it together. Let's get this going because I want this done. I want it done as soon as possible, within reason. Without rushing it through, because going through the community process, I'm not going to rush it through that, and it's all going to depend on the first meeting. If 5 people show up, I'm going to assume they're probably good with what I'm doing.
Sure.
If 300 people show up, I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, that'll tell you a lot.
Yeah. And understand too that we learn a lot as councilmen, as administrators, so to speak. We learn a lot from public input. A lot of ideas, a lot of things come directly with talking to the public. They'll be like, well, I have this and this. You're like, oh, I understand that now. I understand that could be a problem over here. So you learn a lot. So I mean,
Sure.
I highly recommend. I would love for people to show up in droves so we can work through all of this. And again, it's not going to be that complicated. I just don't believe it. What you have is what you have. You live in a neighborhood now, you're good.
Yeah.
If you live in a house now, you're probably good, and we can zone it to where you have as much freedom as possible, and at the same time, allow us to stop this or grind to a big slow crawl, these massive development. And we will, if we get the zoning in place, we will have that authority, because right now, we're on the defensive,
Right. Well, you already mentioned that there are multiple subsets of each zoning type. Please remember, when you attend these meetings, there will be representatives from AFA there that can explain that to you. So I appreciate you covering that point. We need to wrap it up here. Take 60 seconds. This is an opinion question, your opinion, because you're back here and you're back here in front of me because of another big development that's coming. And at this point, you've already said, we talked about at the beginning, it can't be stopped. What is your opinion about the temperature of getting zoning passed through the rest of the council?
100%. Zoning will get passed. Is that what you're? That's
that
your
was
question.
Easy. I'd have figured you'd pontificate a little.
100%, it will get passed. Now, will it be 9-0? It's possible. 50-50 on that. That's how strong I feel about it. But we only need 5.
Sure.
But I mean, speaking to each councilman separately, no one, and I want to say this, none of them have been, I'm not really for that, or I'm concerned. None of them have put that out there. Now, there have been different degrees of emotion about it.
Sure.
But by and large, most are like, we need to get this done. We're going to do this. I'm 100% sure this is going to happen. Now, when it happens, like I'm 90%, 99%, somewhere around there. It's going to get done before the end of the year. It's going to get done. Now, you never know what will fly out of the. Look, the public reaction might be huge, and where it causes us to go back and rewrite and think how we do it. They bring it in. We learn something from that, and we set back. But I know this will happen. I know that it will. Will it get done by the end of the year? If I was a betting man, I'd bet yes.
Okay.
And I'd bet hard.
Oh, okay. All right. He's betting the under. Very interesting. So, well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time. Go ahead and now introduce yourself real quick.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Tracy Girlinghouse, Parish Councilman for District 7, which is the Walker area and the area just surrounding the Walker area. Go Cat.
And my name is McKee David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Please remember that we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.